The United States was built on principles of liberty, individual rights, and democracy. These principles are now being threatened. Our founding fathers envisioned a nation where freedom would flourish. However, there are growing concerns that this vision is at risk. The Democratic Party, one of the two main political parties in the U.S., has shown signs of shifting towards more socialist and even communist ideologies. This shift poses a significant threat to our constitutional freedoms. The core tenets of our democracy are being questioned and, in some cases, undermined. In this essay, we will explore the historical and current indicators of communist influences within the Democratic Party. We will examine how these leanings impact national policies and constitutional rights. Our goal is to highlight the urgency of defending traditional American values against these encroachments. Let us begin by understanding the historical context of these influences. It's crucial to recognize the roots of these ideologies to comprehend their present impact. The Democratic Party has not always been associated with socialist or communist ideologies. However, certain factions within the party have historically leaned towards leftist ideals. The progressive era in the early 20th century saw some Democrats advocating for socialist principles. Figures like Eugene V. Debs, a five-time Socialist Party presidential candidate, garnered significant support. During the Great Depression, the New Deal policies of Franklin D. Roosevelt were seen by some as a drift towards socialism. These policies introduced extensive government intervention in the economy. While they were intended to alleviate economic distress, critics argued that they encroached upon free market principles. In the 1960s and 70s, the counterculture movement further opened the door to leftist ideas. Some Democratic leaders began to adopt more radical stances on social and economic issues. This period saw increased calls for government control and redistribution of wealth, principles aligned with socialist and communist ideologies. Today, we see a resurgence of these ideas within the party. It's important to examine how they manifest in contemporary politics and what they mean for the future of our democracy. In recent years, several Democratic figures have openly embraced socialist policies. Bernie Sanders, a self-described democratic socialist, has gained significant influence within the party. His calls for universal health care, free college tuition, and wealth redistribution resonate with many. The rise of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, is another indicator. This organization has seen a surge in membership and influence. Many of its members hold or seek public office as Democrats. Their platform includes radical changes to economic and social systems, echoing communist principles. Policies like the Green New Deal also reflect these influences. Proposed by progressive Democrats, it calls for extensive government intervention to combat climate change. Critics argue that such policies would lead to unprecedented government control over the economy. These modern indicators suggest a shift towards more radical ideologies within the Democratic Party. But what are the implications of these leanings on our national policies and constitutional rights? The adoption of socialist-leaning policies by the Democratic Party could lead to significant changes in national governance. Universal health care, for example, would require a massive expansion of government control. This could undermine the private sector and limit individual choice. Similarly, free college tuition sounds appealing, but would necessitate heavy taxation and government regulation. This could stifle innovation and economic growth. The Green New Deal's ambitious environmental goals would place severe restrictions on industries. It could also lead to increased government oversight and control over private enterprises. These policies are often justified as necessary for social justice and equality. However, they could erode the free market principles that have driven American prosperity. The government's role in individuals' lives would be significantly expanded, reducing personal freedoms. Such changes have profound implications for our constitutional rights. Let us delve deeper into how these policies could erode the liberties enshrined in our Constitution. Section 5. Erosion of constitutional rights. The U.S. Constitution guarantees freedoms that are unparalleled. However, Socialist and communist ideologies often conflict with these freedoms. One of the most concerning areas is the right to private property. Socialist policies, by their nature, favor redistribution of wealth and resources. This could undermine the constitutional right to private ownership. Another area of concern is the right to free enterprise. The Constitution protects the ability to engage in business and trade freely. However, increased government control and regulation could stifle this right. Policies that limit competition and innovation threaten the economic freedoms that are foundational to American society. Civil liberties, such as freedom of speech and assembly, could also be at risk. Socialist and communist governments historically suppressed dissent to maintain control. While America values free expression, there are growing concerns about censorship and limitations on speech. Let's explore how these ideologies impact specific freedoms, starting with free speech and the press. Freedom of speech and press are cornerstones of American democracy. However, socialist and communist regimes often curtail these freedoms to maintain control. In the US, we see troubling signs of this encroachment. There are increasing instances of censorship, particularly on digital platforms. Social media companies, under pressure from political factions, suppress certain viewpoints. This trend is alarming and reminiscent of state-controlled media in totalitarian regimes. The rise of cancel culture is another concern. Individuals and businesses face severe repercussions for expressing unpopular opinions. This environment stifles open debate and discourages diversity of thought. The fear of reprisal leads to self-censorship, which is detrimental to a free society. These developments highlight the risks of socialist and communist ideologies on free expression. Next, we will examine the threats posed to economic freedom. Economic freedom is a pillar of American democracy. It allows individuals to pursue prosperity and innovation. However, socialist policies threaten this freedom. Government control and regulation of the economy could stifle entrepreneurship. The private sector, which drives growth and job creation, would be severely hampered. High taxation, necessary to fund expansive government programs, would reduce incentives for hard work and investment. Wealth redistribution policies could lead to a decline in productivity and economic stagnation. These outcomes are antithetical to the principles of economic freedom that have propelled America to global leadership. Furthermore, government intervention often leads to inefficiencies and corruption. Bureaucracies grow and resources are misallocated. The market, driven by supply and demand, is a more efficient allocator of resources. Socialist policies disrupt this balance, leading to economic decline. We must also consider the role of education and media in shaping public opinion on these issues. Education and media play critical roles in shaping public opinion. Unfortunately, both sectors are increasingly influenced by leftist ideologies. Universities, once bastions of free thought, are now hotbeds of socialist and communist ideas. Students are often exposed to a one-sided view of history and economics, which skews their understanding of these ideologies. The media, too, plays a significant role. Many mainstream outlets display a bias towards progressive and socialist viewpoints. This bias shapes public perception and influences political discourse. The lack of diverse perspectives in education and media is concerning. It limits critical thinking and fosters a narrow worldview. To counter these influences, it is essential to promote balanced education and media. Critical examination of all ideologies, including socialism and communism, is necessary. Only then can individuals make informed decisions about their political beliefs. Finally, let's discuss what can be done to defend traditional American values. To preserve the founding principles of the United States, we must be vigilant. It is crucial to recognize and counter the growing influence of socialist and communist ideologies in the Democratic Party. Advocacy for traditional American values is essential. Engage in political discourse and educate others about the risks these ideologies pose. Support policies that uphold constitutional rights and economic freedom. Encourage balanced education and media to foster critical thinking. Join organizations that advocate for liberty and individual rights. Participate in the democratic process by voting and voicing your concerns. By staying informed and active, we can protect the freedoms that define America. In conclusion, the threat to our founding principles is real. We must act now to defend the values that have made America a beacon of liberty and prosperity.